but I'll give what I got. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end. 10 trials whose outcomes all fixed from the start. 9 judges sitting counting their money in the dark. 8 towers of iron surround the desert town. On a cold December morning, 7 martyrs knocked them down. 6 fathers still waiting for their 6 sons to come home. 5 mothers who know better and accept that they're gone. 4 years I've been hunted, still I breathe free. 3 times I shot the sheriff and did not spare the deputy. 2 prayers I'm praying until we're together. 1 promise I'm keeping tonight and forever. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end.
Good evening. Welcome to Conspiracy Cafe. I'm your host, George Freund. I'm with you now. I'm with you to the end. And as I scan over a few news items while we're waiting to come on the air, it looks like we're putting off the end just a little bit longer. A little bit longer. There's a lot of tension between the United States and Israel on this anniversary of the infamous 9/11 attack. That's why you come here to Conspiracy Cafe. That's why you come to that channel. And that's why we try to make a difference. Because we're the one and only point of the sword. We have to discuss 9/11 a little bit because it is an anniversary, the 11th anniversary. We don't have a whole lot to do on it because there's just so many other pressing issues that may decide the fate of the world for us tomorrow, and 9/11 will be a moot point because we may not be around to talk about it anymore, or we'll be in a severely impoverished state as the global superpowers square off and as the idiots try to wreck the machinery of the global economy or the peace and security of the planet Earth. So we'll start out with a common news article where they 11 years later are starting to tell us the truth about 9/11. Probably a bit of a copied truth here. Report documents disclose 9/11 warnings. Contributing editor Kurt Eichenwald, New York Times op-ed, saying that in the presidential daily briefing August 6, bin Laden determined to strike the U.S. Okay, that's August the 6th, full month before this happened. The administration reaction, they're not that interested. More direct warnings came in the spring of 2001 on May the 1st. The CIA told the White House there was a group presently in the United States that was planning an attack. On June 22nd, a daily briefing described the attack as imminent. The administration officials, however, dismissed the warnings, saying that Osama bin Laden was merely feigning an attack to distract U.S. efforts from Saddam Hussein in Iraq. So there we go. See, this is the idiot up here, Tweedledee, Tweedledum. George Bush, he dropped the ball. Not being man enough to tell you he dropped the ball. In sports, you see when they drop the ball, they're running down the field and whoops, I dropped the ball. Everybody knows they don't drop the ball, they just pretend nothing happened, that they pretend to keep running with the ball. Intelligence officials, these sources said, protested the idea of bin Laden and Islamic fundamentalists conspiring with Mr. Hussein, an Iraqi secularist. They said it was ridiculous, but the neocon suspicions were nevertheless carrying the day, Eichenwald wrote. In response, the CIA prepared an analysis that all but pleaded with the White House to accept the danger from bin Laden as real. Briefings June 29th, July 1st, July 24th carried similar warnings. Writes one official, suggested staff members of the CIA Counterterrorism Center put in for a transfer that so somebody else would be responsible when the attack occurred. So at the very least, and I said this from the very beginning, we can implicate the Bush administration of the day as being completely and totally incompetent. So here in this city that I'm speaking from, Toronto, when the chief of police comes in for work in the morning, and there's a big hole in the ground where the police headquarters used to be, and we find out that there's a documentary trail from his intelligence officers and maybe other sources saying that there was a threat for as in tomorrow, and he did nothing about it, why would he still be employed? Why would he be leading the charge to look for the so-called perpetrators of the act? That has got to be the most asinine set of circumstances we could ever have. At best, the man is a pompous idiot. There's no way that you would allow him to lead a nation, never mind a nation at war, or a nation going into battle, or a nation having to deal with battles. The man is just a total, flat-out fool. Still is. Might be president anymore, but he's still a fool. It was just absolutely embarrassing what was at his fingertips and how he dropped the ball. So there's just two things that happen in the way the world works, according to George, is it's a lie hop or a my hop. You let it happen on purpose because you made it happen on purpose. So basically this was a false flag operation right from the start. Assets in the intelligence agencies recognized this, reported this, screamed and yelled blue murder, and were ignored. The result is thousands of people were killed in an attack that never should have happened in the first place. But then it's a false flag attack to stimulate war, as most of them are, and things that we're not taught about. This article I have here before me, former head of the Star Wars program says Cheney is the main 9/11 suspect. Former head of the Star Wars missile defense program under Presidents Ford and Carter, Dr. Robert M. Bauman, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force, retired, who was on the Alex Jones show in 2006, I believe, has come up with his version of this. The official version of 9/11 is a conspiracy theory. Well, that we know. The main suspect for the architect of the attack was Vice President Dick Cheney. Because in a way, Bush was just too damn stupid to tie his own shoelaces. He couldn't even have a let it happen, make it happen attack happen. We need new initials for him, and they probably go spell out stupid. So anyway, this gentleman is a PhD in aeronautics and nuclear engineering from Caltech, foremost expert on national security. So we don't allow experts in national security to be making decisions because they may not go for the false flag. So he talks about the Star Wars program, saying it was never intended to be used as a defensive tool. It was always intended to be an offensive tool to initiate a nuclear war with the Soviet Union at the time. He left the program because he was not in favor of that. Very wise man. It's not a very good idea to be in favor of nuclear war, as we've shown with this video that's posted on our website, conspiracy-cafe.com or .org or .net, showing the effects of a nuclear war in England in the 1960s. Just a totally catastrophic, cataclysmic scenario that you would never even want to be within a million miles of. He makes light of the fact that there were drills on the morning of 9/11, and people who've looked into this, people who have eyes to see and ears to hear, have noticed that. Drills that simulated planes flying into the building, because the government has always said, Condi Rice was top of that no one could ever anticipate, no one would ever have expected. What a liar. These people should be hung for treason. So they cover up by duping the air defense personnel into thinking a lot of the real targets, if there even were real targets on their board, were actually a training exercise and were false targets. So they didn't know what was real, they didn't know what was fake. Perfect, just like it's the smoke of the battlefield on a computer screen or a radar screen, and you can't tell friend from foe because you think you're in a big drill. The people who planned and carried out those exercises should be the object of investigation, and I agree. Guantanamo is still sitting as an active piece of real estate. They still have those dunking boards, and we know cab drivers in Kabul are not responsible for anything in, around, or about 9/11. But we do know a lot of these other people, and they should be bobbing for apples until they start spilling some beans. Bringing some of these topics up with his military colleagues, they didn't disagree with him, but of course they won't risk their careers to speak out loud. He says the U.S. is in danger of slipping into a dictatorship and stated there's been nothing closer to fascism than we've seen lately from this government, and actually the one before. The Patriot Act is having done more to destroy the rights of Americans than all our enemies combined. Exactly. Al-Qaeda, if there is such a thing, Osama bin Laden, if he ever was alive at the critical moment, have done nothing to take away our rights and freedoms. Who's done it? Your congressmen, your senators, your members of parliament, your newspapers, your media personnel. They've taken away your rights and freedoms. They've stolen from you. They stole your heritage. Because they're gutless shits. You didn't need to do this in wars past because we knew who the bad guys were, we knew who the good guys were. We don't take away our basic civil rights and constitutional freedoms just because someone said, boo! No. You pry the Constitution out of your cold, dead hand. And if it takes 300 million cold, dead hands, that's when you get it. You can't have it before, because the last one who's got it, it's like you got the ball in the Super Bowl, you're running to the goal line. You don't give it up because somebody went, boo, I'm going to hurt you if you don't give me the ball. Doesn't work. You keep running with that ball. It's just a ball and it's just a game, and it really doesn't matter a tinker's damn if you get to the goal line or not. But the whole concept of freedom and American civilization is in that little document that says we the people. And you hold that dear. And nobody pries it out of your hand until the heart stops beating and the soul has left the body. Nobody surrenders or gives up one iota of what's in there. And anyone who tries to or actually does it is a traitor who's broken their oath of office and should be impeached and removed immediately, actually should be arrested, given an extradition flight to Guantanamo, and dunked. And because they're traitors anyway, we already know they're traitors, there's no sense bringing them up. They're oxygen thieves anyway. Just keep them under, and then give them to the sharks. Because that's what you got to do with these damn traitors. This is the most disgusting era that we could ever imagine to have to live through, is to see people destroy, totally destroy the work of millions and millions and millions of loyal Americans and loyal people in other countries that believe they're sovereign, independent, and free, and just throw the baby out with the bathwater because somebody went, boo, you're gutless shits, you don't belong in public office. We need men. My grandmother had bigger balls than these fuckers, and she was an old woman when I knew her. You wouldn't be going to the airport to get your testicles squeezed or your melons or anything else because you want to get on an airplane. She'd be rolling bandages for the first guy who tried after the brick in her first crushed his skull. And that's an old woman. Don't know what's left from the male half of the world. Gutless, spineless, useless twits who have no understanding of freedom or liberty and the price thereof that has to be paid, sometimes in blood. And it's not by going to another country and picking on a helpless state. It's by standing up to the evil that's right in front of your face. When they're picking their teeth out of their asshole, then they might realize, you know, maybe that Constitution is really a good idea. Because I don't want to go to Guantanamo to get waterboarded because I'm a traitorous dog. The 9/11 Commission is a politically motivated cover-up. So we take all these commissioners, Guantanamo, apples. They're also preparing to stage another false flag attack, because we don't know, right? Because it's the only game they know, and it works well, because we fall for it all the time. I can see it, and I hope they never pull it off, Mr. Bowman says. We see them too. We read the Google Doodles, and we understand strategy. Strategy is very simple. They want to get here, and they're over here. So to get there, they have to cross here. And if we're waiting for them with big spotlights and a brass band, guess what? They can't get over here. It's simple. Unless, your idea, because we're in Canada, our national anthem is "We Stand on Guard for Thee." So, you know, if you're just sitting back in a chair drunk on beer or something like that, or watching sports or looking at porn or whatever you're doing, you're not standing on guard. So what happens when you don't stand on guard? You get robbed. Somebody takes that little document that says "We the People," the Constitution. We have one here in Canada. It just doesn't say "We the People." And they pull it out of your hand while you're alive. Because you're too stupid to stand on guard. You're looking at all the diversions. You'll pay for that. You'll pay dearly. You'll lose every dime you ever had, every dime you could ever hope to have. And then you may get war to blow you to smithereens. Actually, there's a great shot on CNN where it shows a tank shell just landing. It's probably fake, because, you know, being trained in some of these pictures, a retired pilot was showing me that today, and you know, I look at the picture and it's just, you just see the flash like a millisecond before these guys disappear into a million different pieces spread all over town. But just in that thousandth of a second before the explosion, you just see the light hitting. Just like I was always telling you about, you know, the duck and cover part of the nuclear explosion. You get hit with the light first. So even though this is a tank round coming in, as it explodes, the light is picked up by this high definition camera first, and you see the light coming at these guys, and you know, they just look bizarre with this light in the background. And then the next instant, there's just smoke. And when the smoke clears, they're gone. Completely eviscerated into a million pieces and spread all over creation. That's what happens when you drop the ball and you don't think critically and you don't hold our leaders to task. And then a little footnote, Mr. Bowman is currently running for Congress in Florida's 15th district. If you're not voting for him, you deserve everything you get. NSA whistleblower William Binney was running the New York Times as well, by Laura Poitras. He's a mathematician, code breaker. He took part in many programs. He built and started and used the spy system called something they call The Program, in a documentary called The Program, that the code name Stellar Wind. This thing monitors all your private communications of any sort. He dropped out of the security services after he found out they were using it in an unconstitutional manner. You see, there's a man. You know, so if I pay you to do wrong, you'll still do wrong because you want to get paid and you want to get this illustrious pension. So I'll sell out my country, I'll sell out everybody, my citizens, I'll sell out my oath that I took, I'll sell out God, I'll sell out humanity, I'll sell out everything just so I can get this little check, and I got this little badge from the government that says how cool I am. And I get all the perks and whistles, and I can wear sunglasses and drive one of those really dark Suburbans or something like that. So just for that, I'll sell out my country. And then they take other guys who sell out their country for money and they throw them in jail for the rest of their lives. Well, what's the difference? There is no difference. They're both traitors. So the NSA has their $2 billion storage facility in Bluffdale, Utah, with a capacity to store 100 years worth of the world's electronic communications, monitor what people are doing and who they are doing it with. The danger here is that we fall into a totalitarian state, Binney said. This is something the KGB, the Stasi, or the Gestapo would have loved to have had. And who else would want it? A KGB, a Stasi, or a Gestapo. See, with the New World Order, it's all rolled into one. You have just one giant police state organization. So the woman who wrote this article, Laura Poitras, has been detained and questioned more than 40 times at U.S. airports. She's working on a trilogy of films about post-9/11 America. So there you go. There's the terrorist, the woman who works for the New York Times, who exposes that the government's spying on you unconstitutionally and that all these turkeys are violating their oaths of office. They're subverting and taking over the United States of America and turning it into a police state. She is a hero. And so is the NSA whistleblower. They are heroes. They're the people that you should be proud of. Cheney, Bush, Rumsfeld, and the Gestapo of their era, they're all the ones should be in Guantanamo. They're not heroes. They're cowards, despicable cowards. Liars, cheaters, manipulators, the worst scoundrels the human race could ever produce. First Amendment violated as Facebook assists police in crime prevention. Well, Facebook was invented as an intelligence tool. If I go to you door to door and say, "Papers, papers, please," and I ask for, all your affiliates and connections and all that sort of thing, well, you're probably not going to look too well at me. You're going to think that, somehow I'm a nasty person. So if I put together this cute little game-like thing on the internet called Facebook, then you'll all volunteer and play and tell me everything that I want to know and more. Makes it easier to round you up later. So of course Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, they're all linked into the same thing. So Americans are duped into this. And as one chap who we've discussed before was put in a psychiatric ward, John Randolph, supposed to be held up for he's in the John Randolph Psychiatric Ward. A gentleman by the name of Rob, who was a former Marine, was locked up and incarcerated because he was putting song portions on his Facebook page in like a little battle between him and his sister, a childish game. See, the people reading that are dumb. They wouldn't even look to say, well, where did these words come from? Is there a legitimate reason for that? Right away, it's just push the panic button. Okay, so there's supposed to be like a terror plot coming to America. It is imminent. Imminent. I mean, it's going to happen soon. Imminent. Nothing's done. That guy's joking around with his sister on the internet, and the full power of the Gestapo falls on his head. There are some serious problems in the administration of justice in the United States of America. So then we go to a more senior boob, the Department of Justice, and they say, well, people who post a nom de guerre or a nom de plume or another nom on Facebook should be imprisoned for violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Pen names go back a long time. See, the reason you have a pen name is because if you wrote something that was contradictory to the government, they're going to slit your throat, lock you up for a long time, beat the living crap out of you. So that's why they have pen names. And it's a tradition in literature because we know that there's dumb crap holes like the Department of Justice people who like to burn babies at Waco and stuff like that. Fine upstanding citizens, I'm sure, I think that's something terrible. So basically what they're saying is you should be jailed for a breach of contract. So when our leaders take an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, they're doing it with their fingers crossed. So they lied too. They breached a contract. So they should be put in prison. When they run for public office and they promise to do this and this and this and this because they lie to us, they tell everybody the same thing, what they want to hear, which is something completely different to everybody. So if a candidate has to go to 10 million homes and he has 10 million different stories and none of them have anything in common, that's okay. Because they lie to you. They just tell you what you want to hear to get your vote. Slick, real slick, snake charmers they are. So if we hold them to this breach of contract, then they should all be jailed for breaking their promises because they lied to us in an election. That's a very serious lie as far as I'm concerned. So what has 9/11 brought us? Doesn't look very good. This other article we have here, hacked intel email. NYPD involved in damn right felonious activity. NYPD has gone rogue. According to this author, Anonymous got into some emails from a private intelligence firm called Stratfor back in February. A controversial NYPD surveillance activities were uncovered by the Associated Press. I guess they're going to get really checked out when they go on airplanes too. They found that there were serious civil liberties violations, not yet disclosed. Everything the NYPD Intelligence Division has been involved in during the last 10 years, if it comes out, they said it would make Hoover, COINTELPRO, Red Squads, etc. look like rank amateurs. An unnamed FBI senior official in late November 2011 sent an email to Fred Burton, Vice President for Intelligence at the Austin, Texas-based Stratfor. He was a former Deputy Chief of Counterterrorism at the State Department. He admits his own agency broke the law in pursuit of intelligence on perceived enemies of the state throughout the 20th century. But he says the NYPD Intelligence Division's violations are even worse. Then they get into this, one of these lone wolf cases where Jose Pimentel, a 27-year-old American of Dominican descent, was accused of trying to build 3 pipe bombs to detonate in New York City. So he said there was very little cooperation between the NYPD intelligence. They say the source for the story was a nightmare. He was a moron. He smoked dope with the bad guy while wearing an NYPD body recorder. He's going to be charged with drug possession. That tells me we have idiots, total and complete idiots in the police. He's not going, well, he'd probably smoke dope if he went to the Vatican and they pulled down pants on little boys. So I guess I really can't use that as an example, but he's not going to like the church choir. He's going to hang out with killers and terrorists and drug dealers and really nasty people. So they don't always do like, you know, those really nice things. Like they're not going to hold their little pinkies out while they're sipping tea, you know. They probably do smoke dope. They probably drink a little bit. Maybe they even kiss girls or something. So it's just obvious when you're collecting intelligence like that they're going to be doing some things that are on the fringes, if not outright breaking of the law. But they have to do that to get inside, to get the information, and that's far more valuable. So to even think of charging someone with some kind of, you know, stupid crime. The moron isn't him. The moron is the people that want to go after him instead of using the information. So they say the Joint Terrorism Task Force of the NYPD fights with the Intelligence Division all the time about all kinds of things. They're totally out of sync. The JTTF are in sync with the FBI, and the Intel people are in sync with their boss or former CIA official David Cohen. And because of all this competition and fighting, they don't get anything done. But then they're not supposed to get anything done. It's easier to have a false flag operation. What they fail to mention in this article, or fail to understand, is the CIA has infiltrated everything, including local law enforcement, where they planted a lot of their people in very key positions to do the work of the CIA and just pretend to be whatever they are. And frequently that means pretending to be a cop. You're there to do something completely different. So they got into widespread spying all over the place, as if we didn't know that. Felonious activity in violation of American civil rights. The FBI does not appear to have opened a civil rights investigation or done anything to stop this illegal activity. They protect us to protect us from illegal police activity. The FBI abdicates its responsibility. All Americans suffer. Yes, indeed. But they did nothing for many other cases as well. Torture, illegal wiretapping, these rendition things. So that tells us and proves to us in a way that this is a CIA intelligence operation right here in the United States, because they won't do anything about it. So in this article we see too where good things happen. It's like my dad used to say, it doesn't matter what they do, some young kid's always going to come up with something. So a New York-based entrepreneur, Nicholas Merrill, has devised an untappable encryption provider for telecommunications. So this prevents the mass surveillance of people. So what he does is, he encrypts your devices, but you carry the encryption. So your provider doesn't have the answer, can't decrypt. So when the police or the FBI or the intelligence services go to them and say, here, spy on this guy, they can't undo this. It's yours. You have to be served personally with the warrant to open your encryption. And then you know you're being spied on. Brilliant young fella. So what else do we have from 9/11? Well, I guess one that's just sad. There's another article here I saw on the BBC, is probably getting its runs. Cancer victims, 9/11 cancer victims, to have treatment funded 11 years after it's over. So they say 70,000 are surviving emergency workers. And I heard on the radio from a source who was near and dear to this case, 13,000 are dead already. So that helped a lot. Now why would they withhold this treatment to America's heroes who went and were first responders at 9/11? Because they want to kill them. They're witnesses. One day, as we're getting in the cloak of the anger and the hatred and the surprise and the rage and all that smoke clears away, and we honestly see for a moment the truth that they knew, that they let it happen, and maybe they even let it happen on purpose. Now the memories come clear to say, I saw that, I saw this, I saw that. Soon there won't be anybody alive to say they saw anything. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But evil's like that. Another story we talk about came from Australia, where how we used our allies to do our drone surveillance and drone attacks from Australian air bases without really giving them informed consent about what we were doing, just sneaking in under the radar, so to speak. They got caught. This one's cute, because it was like a plane porn club. Retired airline people, photographers, air traffic controllers, just like to watch the movement of planes and listen to radio signals from planes. And they caught them. They started photographing them and watching them. They got the visits. And they said, so what? Well, one of the things they mentioned in here, that this wonder plane, the Global Hawk they have, is a third-rate nation, can pick up Global Hawk flights using airport radar. There's nothing like super special about these planes, except they're costly. And then, of course, they mentioned in this article that Australia is part of the so-called Five Eyes intelligence club that all spy on each other. The United Kingdom, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States being the other members. Is to get around our laws, we spy on each other. So Canada can't spy on Canada, so the Brits spy on Canada, or the Americans, or any of our other two. And then they get the information from the back door instead of the front door. They twist and manipulate every law or everything decent into something evil. Corporate surveillance state, how the thought police use your cell phone to track your every move. So that was another piece of 9/11. Another fruit from the poison tree. In one incident at one of these airport scenarios, a man stood up and said no. And he's done it before. And he's been punished for it before, as I recall. So border agents asked Pastor Steve Anderson to show his papers. So he wasn't even at the border, it was one of these checkpoints. At one time he was viciously beaten and tasered by Border Patrol thugs a few years ago. And he hasn't given up. He was stopped again, he was asked for this kind of stuff, and he said, no, I'm an American citizen, I'm traveling freely. And this is what another citizen has done in Florida. I lose my man over there? Scotty, oh, okay, there he is. Obama, our dictator. The Patriot Act, NDAA, Second Amendment, Stop the New World Order. Here, the truth, Alex Jones, Infowars.com. Paid for by MK Ultra mind control victim Ken Rhodes and Gary Gaines and millions more. So that's an old saying I came up with once that said, see the need, take the initiative, right? See, the Constitution is we the people, not some bureaucracy in government that you steal money from somebody in taxes to give to somebody else, and then they do everything for you because you're too busy just drinking beer in front of the TV. No, you got to do it yourself. See, it's like I said on the show before, you got to get off your ass and do something. And there's not too many people even know how to do that. You see, it works like this. You see, you're in a chair like this, and then you just kind of get up and you get off your ass. See, it's just like that. You practice. It works. You hold on to the ends here like that. Plant your feet firmly on the ground, see? And then, oh yeah! See, it works. And then once you get up, you can do all kinds of things. You can walk, you can run, you can punch somebody in the nose, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can say no. But you got to take that first initiative. You got to get off your ass. See, you're so used to being spoon-fed by government. They do all your thinking for you, and they do everything else for you, and you just don't expect that there's anything you can ever do for yourself. Well, you can do everything for yourself. You just got to get off your ass. Works. Pay for a sign. I do a show. You could run off a little thing, hand it out door to door, put it on a notice board, buy a commercial on the radio in your town and say, listen to this show. It's not hard, just costs you a few bucks. But you're not going to have any money in a little while anyway because you don't want to do anything with it. So you're going to lose it all. If you don't invest a little bit to save your rights and freedoms and the economy from global collapse, you're going to lose it all. So if you're going to lose it all anyway, lighten up. Take the initiative. Put up a nice sign like that. There's somebody who's really got a brain. Operation Mockingbird, New York Times, writes a story critical of Obama. So, a reporter, Mark Mazzetti, forwarded an advance copy of a Maureen Dowd column to a CIA spokesperson to have it analyzed and gone over for comment before it was published. We don't do that here. You don't like it? Don't listen. But we're going to say it. So of course they're going to deny that, they got anything to do with anything, but that's probably a lie too. What's another little factor here is Desmond Tutu come forward, longtime critic of the war in Iraq, and he says Tony Blair, George Bush should be taken to the International Court in The Hague over the Iraq War because they lied. They lied about everything. Everything they did was a complete lie, fabrication to get people killed. So here, I always like this picture with Tony Blair in jail, and here's the Bush gang. They all belong behind bars. Or even worse, after conviction, why waste a good rope? Some rope company sponsors Genesis. Buy some. I'm sure we can use it sooner or later. We may even give them trials. Maybe, if we remember to pick them out of the drink there in Guantanamo. Then, of course, we have to have other stories. This one I just came about by accident. Warning, Mount Fuji set to erupt. Came across another accident too. If we want to really start worrying about, tectonic plate movements or something. That's not the only one. I like this picture of Mount Fuji. And of course, this is the only show on the planet Earth that's come up with the fact, said this in like 2009, that there was a ship drilling on the fault lines off Japan. The ship was called the Chikyu. And I looked at that as stupid. That was even more stupid than Bush. That takes a lot of stupid. You see, even though I'm not a geologist or a volcanologist or any other kind of ologist, I understand things a little bit about what they call pressure vessels. It's like, you know, something like a steam engine would have, you know, or whatever. Has a lot of pressure inside. And when you drill a hole in it, it's just common sense that, well, the stuff under pressure is going to come out the hole. It's not rocket science. So just from an idiot's point of view on my side, I said, you wait, you watch. Something big's going to happen there in 2011. Guess what? So I'm an idiot. I wouldn't have been wanting real estate in the J.A. Pan Company. Then I came across an article in my research that's posted on this blog from 1944, Popular Science, that this was a plan devised by Harold O. Whitnell, professor of geology and geography, Colgate University, published in January 1944. We can blast Japan from below and release this beautiful hot lava all over these suckers. Well, let's go up here. See, this picture's kind of cute. Just shows right here, you got to have a lateral thrust. Okay, at a certain key point. So if that's Mount Fuji or something like that, you're drilling into the side there, you release all this stuff. And guess what? Here's the Chikyu map of drilling. It's in Japanese, so I'm left out in the dark here, but you see, I see this volcano here, and I see the Chikyu here, and I see this drill hole down here, and I see the exact spot where they got like a lateral thrust going into the side of the mountain. Then of course other ones down here on the plates. And you got to wonder, and you see all the stuff underneath here, and you're going like, hey man. So even if Chikyu is completely innocent, and they just drill these holes because they're idiots, then somebody comes along later, as I said in one of my blogs that's linked on this site from before, and somebody plants an explosive, or a nuclear explosive even, at the bottom of the hole. And it blows. What happens? The plates slide, right? You got two big plates pushing on each other. Somebody blows out the middle. One of them moves. Brilliant. And then we get back to this old plan. Can we blast Japan from below? I think people have been blasting Japan from below for a long, long time. Just nobody's really catching on because Japan is here on 3 plates. Mount Fuji is actually 3 volcanoes in one. And we wonder if we get this puppy going, can we get all 3 to blow? That would be quite a trick. From one of our little science articles here, you know, they mention, and this is all top-end science here, this is, you know, May 2012, a professor from Ryukyu University warned a massive eruption within 3 years would be likely because of several major factors. Steam and gases are being emitted from the crater, water eruptions are occurring nearby, massive holes emitting both hot, natural gases are appearing in the vicinity, and finally, the warning sign of warning signs, there's a 34-kilometer long fault line underneath the volcano. So I wonder if that's what that red thing is here in this diagram, if that's a 34-kilometer long fault line. But the pressure is 1.6 megapascals. 0.1 megapascals was enough to trigger an eruption. They said it has 16 times more pressure than it had for the 1707 blast. An eruption could kill over 300,000 people. The Japanese government is going to be meeting for all kinds of strategies about this. They're going to have drills, you know. You need your brain drilled, I guess, if you're living around there. These people are really taking it on the chin. This is an example of some of the previous volcanoes of note and how much crap they threw in the air with cubic miles of ejecta. And that's a cute little picture there at the bottom with the little blasting volcano. So while I'm waiting to do the show, I see a little something here, magma pooling. So you can't help but not want to get into that one. So right now as we speak, magma is pooling beneath the infamous Greek Santorini volcano, the site of one of the largest eruptions in the past 100,000 years. That eruption, which took place 3,600 years ago, wiped out the Minoan civilization of the Greek islands and may have spawned the legend of the lost city of Atlantis. In the last 1.5 years, the magma chamber beneath the volcanic island has ballooned by as much as 350 million cubic feet, 20 million cubic meters, or up to 15 times the size of London's Olympic Stadium. This giant mass of magma has caused the island to rise by as much as 5.5 inches, 14 centimeters, according to a study published in September 9th's issue Nature Geoscience. There's also renewed earthquake activity beneath the volcano. Yummy, yummy, yummy. And then we have to really think about Japan and some of the beatings they've taken. Benjamin Fulford writes a lot about Japan, talks about the P2 fascist lodge, planning for a world dictatorship. He wrote an article, Financial Wars Down to a Few Small Factions and Key Individuals, Lots of High-Profile Deaths Seen. Cardinal Carlo Maria Martini, Bishop of Milan, died on the full moon night at the end of August. He was the Vatican spy master. Sergei Leonidovich Sokolov, former head of the Soviet Union Armed Forces, died the same day, as well as Reverend Sun Myung Moon. Great guy to die on a full moon is a moon. Head of the Unification Church, owns a large ranch in Paraguay, is neighbors with the Bush family down there. So he says they're struggling for the control of the world's finances, which wouldn't be unreasonable considering how greedy people are. Former Prime Minister Naoto Kan of Japan revealed a lot of secrets about the 311 nuclear tsunami terrorist attack at a well-attended but unreported press conference. So that is, there's mainstream media. There's a difference for you. I was talking to a gentleman today. He was asking me what I'm going to do on the show tonight, and I just said, well, you buy all this media here. It's like you're buying a whore. What do you expect from her? You get screwed, and they walk away with your money. That's it. It's the same, I do this out of love. There's a big difference between a love relationship and buying a whore. We want you to survive. We want you to prosper. We care about what happens to you tomorrow. That you're standing on your own 2 feet and you got that little rolled up piece of paper in your hand that says, "We the people." And nobody can pry it from your hand. And they're definitely not going to do it from your cold dead hand, because we're going to make sure you prosper and survive. Big difference. What they call the media whores. They're part of the intelligence system. But he stated, that's probably one of the big things why they didn't report it. He said one of the biggest things that was responsible for what happened in Japan was divine intervention. But he also mentioned in this article that a Reverend, Maizumi Pualo, of the Takakawa Church, is sheltering a member of the Japanese self-defense forces who participated in placing the nuclear bombs used in the attack. We said that from the beginning. This chap Jim Stone really seemed to hit the nail on the nuclear weapons and tell us what's happening. And this is kind of backing it up to a great degree. He mentions other names. Slash Azarek, who appears on an internet name Alexander Romanov, is in protective custody of the Japanese police. He's testified that he participated in smuggling into Japan the nuclear weapon used in the attack. And of course, because we've learned the lie, we just keep repeating the lie, even though the factoids come out later. It's just you can't find them because no press is going to report them. Yasuhiro Nakasone admits to having kept the nuclear weapon in his residence prior to the attack. Peter Hans Kovalbach is bragging on the phone that he was Satan and that he ordered the 3/11 attack. So he could just be a flippin' nutbar, but who knows? Benjamin Netanyahu is recorded in a phone call to Naoto Kan, the former Japanese Prime Minister, threatening to blow up all of Japan's nuclear plants unless Kan signs over $5 trillion of Japan's foreign assets. And of course, Mr. Stone was quick to point out that the company planting these giant cameras that look like nuclear weapons was Israeli. So little pieces seem to fit here if that's our puzzle. Senator J. Rockefeller sent Kurt Campbell on March 9, 2011 to offer Japanese power broker Ichiro Ozawa the rights of nuclear waste cleanup material in Fukushima. Well, there's good timing, 2 days before that you knew this was going to happen. So if you knew it was going to happen, that pretty much means you were making it happen, right? So these people have in their possession a 500 kiloton Ukrainian Granite nuclear missile purchased from the Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout. Use still undetermined. I guess we're going to see a false flag coming out of that. And then in another, rather bizarre article that's going to go with my doodle. This was in the same hub of articles. In unusual snub, Obama to avoid meeting with Netanyahu. So there we go. Bibi's coming, and Obama is just going to walk the other way. These people do not get along at all. In fact, we'll be getting into a small story about a giant shouting match between the U.S. ambassador and Netanyahu, because he wants them to attack Iran, and he's not getting his way, and he's not happy about that. And when a nasty intelligence service from Israel is not happy, you can expect some terrible things happening. Indeed. And I guess our other, big-time story is our Star Trek Google Doodle. This one worked out very quickly for me because I know where they want to go. I know where they want to head. And then you can't make any mistake if you're any kind of a Trekkie to understand they're sailing in the USS Enterprise. And where is the USS Enterprise right now? Well, it's off Iran, ready for the attack. And I've seen the episodes that were used in this doodle, probably many times as a younger person. So in one of these episodes, or I guess we could just go quickly through the thing. When you push one of the buttons, you get Uhura to focus in, 2 stars show on her. I didn't freeze the frame fast enough to get that one. And then as the things go on, the little E guy goes into the turbo lift here at the side, ends up in the transporter room. And then in the transporter room, they're beamed down to the planet, an hostile alien planet. And then we have Captain Kirk there, and this little chap, who, if he's one of the main characters in Star Trek, should be Scotty, the engineer. And when you click on this tree, a branch flies and hits the monster, Vaal, V-A-A-L, which is probably a parallel to the ancient god Baal, B-A-A-L. But the stick bounces off and then comes back and hits the little red guy in the head. So you almost look at that as an attack, a false flag attack that backfires and hits the E. Is the E USS Enterprise, or is it Israel? So then Captain Kirk, undaunted, runs around, outflanks, goes up on top of the little hill there and finds that cool little weapon. And he fires it. And this weapon is from the Doomsday Machine episode. It's this giant planet-eating machine that strips planets to nothing and devours them. And Kirk fires that weapon at Vaal. Vaal falls, dead. And then we have to wonder, this doomsday machine that they're using, are they implying a nuclear weapon? So after the attack, of course, the heroes return to the Enterprise and fly off into interstellar Google space. But when we look at the fact that at the same time Canada broke off diplomatic relations with Iran for really no reason at all. We have to wonder, is that reason being that we're going to go to war in a matter of days? Because they had 5 days to get out of Dodge. Very perilous times indeed. And then in Israel, even more perilous times because people are lining up and buying gas masks. So one woman who was in one of the news articles got 21 for her, children, grandchildren, and husband, and they're giving away these things for free. I got my Israeli gas mask from the last scare at a surplus store. Not exactly for free, but for a few bucks. One of the things with these two episodes, the other episode where Vol is in, is called The Apple. The important thing about The Apple was first broadcast on October the 13th, 1967. And if there's anywhere we're expecting an attack, it's in October. Very timely to be in and around the American election. Behind the scenes in this episode, Chekhov flirts with one of the natives of the planet and kisses her. And then other people in the tribe try to emulate this. Vol finds out, is instantly aware, and starts attacking the Enterprise and her crew. But the fact that Chekhov is a Russian implies that Russia is behind the scenes as well, maybe actively participating with Iran. Vol is right here. Here, the Caspian Sea in Iran. There is a place. Tehran is way down here. So it's just ironic, maybe, that this is the way it is. There's also another place called Gorgon, just right beside Vol. And Gorgon was another character who controls the minds of children and gets them to attack the Enterprise crew. Strange that that name just happened. So that wasn't in the doodle, it's just something I remember from seeing the Star Trek episodes too many times. The other story, Planet Killer, debuted October 20th, 1967. Was that another date for attack? So the USS Constellation was attacked by that planet-killing thing, and the crew was killed. There was a Commodore Decker on board the Constellation, and he almost sounds like Netanyahu in real life, but he beamed his people down to a planet when he realized his ship might be in danger of being destroyed. The only thing is the planet-killing thing bypassed the ship, attacked the planet, destroyed it, and killed all his people, and Decker went sort of mad. The planet-killing Hulk was made out of pure neutronium, some special metal that was invulnerable to any sort of attack. So Decker wanted to get into some kind of mortal combat with this planet-killing machine because of the loss of his crew. And in real life, Netanyahu lost his brother, who died in military action in one of Israel's many conflicts. And I feel that's where he comes from. He wants to settle a score. He's not interested in dealing with real-time intelligence or a real-time issue. He's carrying the weight of the loss of his brother, and he wants the rest of the world to pay for it. Many people do that. They can't accept the fact that, shit happens. And sometimes it's not good. And you just gotta live with it and move on, because the mortal ends of life have been reached. There's not a lot you can do to change that till we get to the other side ourselves. Commodore Decker has a mental breakdown, tries to plot a suicide attack on this planet killer, and he actually does. He steals a shuttlecraft from the Enterprise and goes in and attacks it. Then they rig the USS Constellation to enter this planet killer and blow up inside, destroying it. in a non-suicide mission. So we're going to see what's going to happen with Enterprise in this. I'm thinking they're backing off a little bit because we're smelling too deep into their plots and conspiracies. So when the CBC, they interviewed Netanyahu, and he comes back saying that he's backing off, he's softening his stance. He's trying to establish the red line, as he calls it. So the IAEA report says it's too early to strike Iranian targets. Their centrifuges are too old and not productive enough to produce a weapon. He's under enormous pressure at home and from the United States to give Iran more time. The Israeli Republic remains very, very wary of preemptive strikes because they'll be on the eating end of whatever blows up primarily. The majority of Israelis don't want a military strike unless they have American cooperation, and they're not getting it too easily. And then this article here, Congressman confirms Netanyahu Shapiro spat. Republican Mike Rogers says Netanyahu expressed elevated concerns over Iranian threat to U.S. Ambassador Shapiro. And they described this meeting as a sharp exchange, which is very political for, you know, damn near a knuckle duster. So in his entire career, Congressman Rogers says he's never really seen anything like that between politicians and or diplomats. So Netanyahu doesn't feel America is acting and reacting the way he would like them to. He needs his boy, Mitt Romney, in there, someone he has under the thumb, someone that he controls completely and totally. General Mark Dempsey also was reported as saying that, you know, Netanyahu and company would be telling everyone that the U.S. would have no choice but to be sucked into a devastating regional war in the event of an Israeli first strike on Tehran. Maybe Obama's just told him to go pound salt. You do it, you're on your own, baby. And of course, General Dempsey's been taking it on the chin. There was that, you know, close attack on his aircraft when he landed in Afghanistan. Is that just a little knock-knock from their friends in Israel saying, we're watching you? John McCain attended a super-secret Ambrosetti Forum in Italy. So that's another group that's like the Bilderberg group, one of these elite Chatham House rules things. We plot and conspire to take all your rights and freedoms, all your money, and destroy the world and leave it and lay waste to it. And we just don't tell you anything because we got these Chatham House rules where no one can quote what we say. Fellow warmongers Lindsey Graham and Joe Lieberman were there as well, fresh from a tour of the Middle East. And they're itching for war. Because one, they won't have to be in it. That's why they're itching it for it. The Iranian Navy is expanding its presence around the world as if that's an issue. And then sort of a sidebar issue that I just came across by accident that almost leaves you sick. Israel leaves Africans stuck in the desert. 20 Eritrean asylum seekers, including a pregnant woman and a 14-year-old boy, were trapped between two fences that they have for 6 days in the desert heat with no food and very little water. So seemingly the story is that the higher-ups told the soldiers not to feed them or give them any water, hoping they'll just go away and die somewhere else. The woman suffered a miscarriage. And then you just have to wonder, you know, if we did this back in 1942 to some Jewish people, and we had a fence with some German people on the other side, you would call us war criminals. I guess they're not at war, so you're just a criminal. Israel's prepared for a mass roundup to deport all the people they don't like. Most of them are black. And I guess some things just never change. Can't have all those, you know, uppity niggers in our Israel, can we? Not that they wouldn't want to get out of some of these horrid countries that they have to stay in and live in. It's just absolutely disgusting. So let's see here. Let's play this one here, see if this one goes. CIA agent never watched television. Wise move.
His brother was in the CIA, or is in the CIA. He will never talk about the CIA to him. He'll never give anything away whatsoever, except one bit of advice. He said, never watch the television. Never watch the television. It's the greatest scientific indoctrination tool ever devised. Haven't you figured that out? It's changed the whole culture of nations, not just one nation. Why do you think it was mandatory that everybody in Britain give access to televisions by the government? Why do you think China is under the same program to get everyone with a TV right now? Because they love to have you entertained. Do you really think that? And India is on the same route as well right now too. Most of your ideas and your opinions and how you emulate, because you emulate things, you mimic what you see. As Charles Galton, Darwin and others have said in the past. It becomes you, you become it. And that's what's happened. It's been very, very, very successful. Never watch the television. You can't watch a movie unless you do it critically. If you watch it critically, not there to enjoy it. Remember what they say, it's your emotions that get you on. And it's interwoven, all these emotional themes all through movies. You're played like a harp. And they embed ideas into you, along with the movies. And predictive programming too. So you'll accept that which is still to come. And you'll behave the same way as the characters in the movie when it comes. Oh well, what can you do? I'll just watch much music or television. Yeah. You're given a mind of your own, and you've got to use it for yourself. And believe you me, if you ever had a nation or wanted a nation, you'd have to make sure that everyone took their turn. Everyone took their turn. Just like jury duty, to go in and oversee the guys that are supposed to be taking care of everything on your behalf. It's a tight club right now. It's been like that forever, because they never intended to give you anything called democracy, or, in fact, a republic. Gangs and fraternities run the systems of the countries. That's how they're run. And under taxation, and it's true what Marx said, and it's true what Lenin said, about that part of it, all wealth comes from labor. And tax is another term for labor. When they take your labor from you and give you nothing back for it, that's called stealing and slavery. Slavery, folks. But no teacher told you that, did they? Look at the dictionaries if you can find an old enough one, because they keep changing them too. From Hamish myself from Ontario, Canada, it's good night. I mean, your God or your gods go with you.
So a very wise piece of advice from a gentleman not to watch TV. Read. That doesn't hurt much, but still you have to be very critical about what you put into your brain in case it's some type of programming. We try to do that here as best we can, not to program your brain, but to try to deprogram you, to make you think, to make you sentient. We have another article here. Adrian Salbucci, somebody I had on the show years ago, the non-aligned grand chessboard. He said he's been writing things for RT, and they're being, it's Russian television, they've been edited beyond belief without his knowledge and consent, and just totally turned upside down, and now he's at a juncture where he doesn't want to submit articles to them. He's found the Spanish version, publishes his stuff, but not the English version. So he wrote a piece called Non-Aligned Countries Grand Chessboard, 16th Summit, held in Tehran, Iran, from the 26th of August to the 31st of August, something mainstream media pretty much forgets to tell us, I guess. But national, international leaders were there, 40 heads of state, President of Egypt, UN Secretary General, the presidents of India and Pakistan, observers from Russia and China. So a hell of a meeting. But of course, it just doesn't get much attention. North Korea was there as well. The head of Afghanistan, the man we're supposed to be, fighting for to help him along. But I guess what really offended the editors is Salbucci mentions the third position that Juan Domingo Perón of Argentina brought up, which is basically fascism light. So they look at it as not a communist thing and not a fascist thing. So we get away from the usury and we get away from collectivism, which are good. But at the time, Perón was the agent to get people out of Europe, particularly the ones that used to wear brown shirts or black Gestapo uniforms. So that was the conduit to get all these looted monies, the killers and war criminals out of Europe and get them away from any sort of justice. And I looked at the third position, the third way, as fascism light. I don't really look at that as a great solution. If we ran the American Republic the way it was meant to be run, where we, the people, make the decisions, and they are binding, generally we'll make the correct decision under whatever circumstances. It's just common sense. It might not be the most profitable short-term solutions for the ultra-rich, but too bad for them, because they're going to end up losing everything they got anyway. Like, you just can't believe the kind of money some of these people throw around. Elton John was in town for, you know, the Fashion Cares thing or something, so one of the guys that was doing the security down there and actually, you know, gets to go into Elton John's dressing room with someone I had a conversation with. You know, people were dropping like $50,000 just for the dinner ticket. You know, 50 grand just to have a meal at the Royal York Hotel. It's not too bad action. There's a lot of people got a lot of money to spend. They also have a lot to lose too, far more than we have to lose. So this imam in Pakistan who was accusing a Christian girl of blasphemy, Khalid Christie, has now come out of the bag where he set up this girl who was slow, maybe not mentally retarded, but slow, with evidence that she burned a Quran, to try to get something started. If I had to take a guess, I would say the imam is probably working for the CIA and was a conduit to try to get something happening. They want us, they've always wanted us to do all kinds of things to each other, particularly people of the monotheistic faiths. They want the Muslim, the Christian, and the Jew to kill each other so the New World Order can take over. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Then, you know, I guess just to add a quick little thing here, there were two other big stories today too, is the leader or the future leader of China, this chap right here, Vice President Xi Jinping, is missing. So when they had the big APEC summit, there's no boss, he's gone. Nobody knows what happened to him. Then another one, the Japanese finance minister died yesterday, Monday. He's 73, so it's not unexpected that we get to that age that, you know, we lose it. I'm sure he's got a very high-stress job. Maybe he sucked in a little bit too much radiation too, who knows, but or maybe he didn't want to give over some money to Mr. Netanyahu, but he's no longer with us either. So just little things on the bumpy road to the New World Order that we have to take into account. Then we had the big Sikh temple shooting. The local police have released photographs, although they are rather blurry, of the gunfight. So there's really not a whole lot to see, unfortunately. We just have to take their word at things. So the first officer at the scene, Lieutenant Brian Murphy, did arrive, find victims. Then he was fired upon. He took cover behind a car. The gunman, Wade Michael Page, came after him, shot him up. He was shot 15 times. His bulletproof vest stopped 3, so that's a good thing. And then the other officer who came on the scene came with a rifle, much better option when you're in a gunfight, and put this guy down, shot him in the stomach, and then he shot himself. So they released snippets of this tape, and I guess that's to verify that, we just have the one lone gunman. But the most disconcerting part part of the whole story, of course, is the father, the producer of the movie Disclosure, was one of the victims. And we have to really wonder if this wasn't a setup, it's a whack attack. The police, the news media, they say the motive remains uncertain. Well, when you look at some of the news that we talk about, some of the things we do, there is no uncertainty at all. It's very clear. The FBI agent, Stephen Ivins, his body was found last month too. You know, it was 1.5 miles from his home. Hikers noticed the odor. It had been decomposing for a long time. It was behind a school or something like that. Nobody else notices this odor. Like, you know, the dogs were going down on him when they were searching in the first instance, and they took them away. They didn't let the dogs naturally lead them. That's the whole point of having the dog. It's the dog's to lead you because it has senses you don't have. So I guess they're waiting good and long for the body to decompose, so there is no real evidence that they can get from the body. And they can just say it was suicide. A policeman was killed in the Obama motorcycle escort when he was in Florida on Sunday. He's from the Jupiter Police Department. Jupiter, the city in Florida, as opposed to the planet. Officer Bruce St. Laurent, hit by a pickup truck, killed. Maybe accidental, but a good man goes down. And terrible circumstances are there for, unfortunately, his family, because it's a difficult world to be in sometimes. And let's see here. I guess we should get into this one. It's a large story, but this individual here, Saad al-Hilli, 50, was ambushed in France, killed. It was a despicable crime. Right away, my spidey tingly senses were right on the story right from the very beginning. Because at first it was only like this big, one little page. Some guy gets shot with his wife and grandma and their daughter and a passing bicyclist. Shot. And it doesn't get to be like that ad infinitum news, right? One kid gets shot in the States and it's repeated all over the world, everywhere. I'm going like, well, you know, they shot a little kid too. How come this isn't like one of those big, you know, gun control type stories? Well, it's not. You know, they just kind of hush it up. But it was so good as a story that you couldn't pass it by. The thing that really broke the mold is in the car where the 3 adults' bodies were found, there was a little girl alive, left there for like 8 hours by the French police, hiding under her mother's legs, completely omitted by the assassin or assassins. So now the story gets wings. And we find out why. Because this chap worked for a plethora of military-industrial complex type companies. The gunman, and I guess we have a picture of the car here, so we can just put it in comparison, popped everybody twice in the head. So as they say in this article, it's the classic modus operandi of a criminal gang, a terrorist group, or the security services. I kind of lean for the security services. So daddy's behind the driver's seat, or in the driver's seat. The 2 women, adult women, are in the back seat, all shot in the head. I get the feeling the daughter might have been in the passenger front, gets out. She's 7 years old, she runs for her life. The guy shoots at her, hits her in the arm, she goes down. And then he must have run out of bullets or something, because he catches up to her and he doesn't pop her in the head. He pistol whips her 3 times, fractures her skull, leaves her for dead. And then it just gets more and more bizarre. Let's see if we get our big picture here. So then allegedly, there's a guy on a bicycle, a Mr. Mollier, who passes another chap heading to the scene. The other chap is a former Royal Air Force officer, cycling. And then he gets whacked. He's shot, now that it comes out, twice in the head too. And 3 other times. He was hit 5 times. So you just wonder, you know, I guess did 3 wound him, and then he goes up and finishes them off. The little girl approaches the RAF, former RAF officer on foot. She's wounded. He lays her down in the recovery position, calls for help. He goes to the car, he turns off the engine, he realizes the other people are dead. He's scared shitless because he's going to be killed or something along this line. It's just a unbelievably horrific crime. But it doesn't have legs. This is the chap's house in England. He was an English citizen. He owned a couple of companies. Some of the ones that just jump out and bite you, or they do aerial photography. So this company, AMS 1087, does aerial photography. He left Iraq. He was an Iraqi as a child, came to England in the 70s, so he's long outside of any of the politics that would exist. He worked to design a satellite for Surrey Satellite Technology in Guildford. It was supposed to have been known to British intelligence for 20 years. Then one of the other ones they come up with is he was designing a plasma generator for Surrey Nanosystems Limited. When he was killed, word got out to the British Embassy in Paris. They sent 20 intelligence officers, hardcore military guys, to the scene. This isn't your average, everyday kind of killing. He was on a holiday with his family. They were camping in some beautiful parts of the country, having a nice cheap family holiday. So they're worried about, was it secret work on the satellite contract? Part of the reason they killed him? Because this company, Surrey Satellite Technologies Limited, has a contract with Europe's biggest defense companies. Part of it would be that they're preparing for war in the Middle East. Satellite technology would be very, very important. It says here too, 25 rounds in total were fired, where previously they said 15. Sylvain Mollier, 45, was also murdered, the guy on the bicycle. This project that he was working on was related to the European Aeronautic Defense and Space, EADS. They have contracts with Russia, China, and the Foreign Office of Britain. SSTL acquired EADS in 2008. They have contracts with NASA, the European Space Agency, the Ministry of Defense, contractor Thales. I remember coming across that once before. I know it probably wasn't pleasant. The Eurofighter project, designs and launches for satellites. In December, Mr. al-Hilli visited a subdivision of SSTL called DMC International Imaging, signing a contract with the Chinese to help map the country via satellite imagery. Lucrative satellite mapping deal with Russia and with the Foreign Office in Afghanistan to monitor illicit opium poppy cultivation. That one, that's got to have a big line underneath it. Opium poppy cultivation in Afghanistan. So he knows who's getting the smack and where it's going. And that's probably, if there's an organized crime element, which almost goes hand in hand with the security services, that's it. He lived a lifestyle that people wondered about how he lives a lifestyle like that. He was doing well, but not well enough to live the way he lived. His own personal company, SH Tech, an aeronautical business, had profits of £8,300 last year. Another company he had, the AMS 1087 Survey Company, generated just over £2,000 in profits. Hardly enough to support his $1 million or £1 million home in England and other properties that he owned. The brother is implicated by the media to say, well, they had rows and it's a possible domestic type situation. Double tapping, 3 people in one car with one shooter. That is the work of an expert's expert. There's no way in hell, because you're just not going to sit there and be shot, right? So you got to double tap, boom, boom. Got to go to the back seat, boom, boom. Next one, boom, boom. Okay, I could see you got that far, but then there's the guy on the bicycle and the kid who runs away. And you got to double tap them both in the head too. That's something. And then there's another really bizarre link. It's more bizarre that you got this former RAF intelligence officer on the bicycle, possibly following him. They said this guy was under surveillance from the spooks in Britain for up to 20 years. So obviously, either he really knows something, because if he was a bad guy, I'm sure they would have taken him out. But the other bicyclist, Sylvan, was an employee of a company called Krezas, which supplies equipment to nuclear power plants. Almost all, well, I'd say all the world's media left that out. He worked for a subsidiary called Areva, global leader in the market for zirconium, the metal used, among other things, for nuclear fuel cladding. So we wonder if he may have been the intended target, because he was working for Iran. And these other people just happened to be there and get in the way and see something they weren't supposed to see. And then the assassin just shoots them down. But corporate media leave out so many of the fine details. A blogger even mentioned that because he was an electrical engineer for a satellite company, that he may have helped to install a Federal Bridge hijack system on Air France 447, which crashed in the Atlantic some time away. There was also an armed carjacking 75 kilometers away the same day, which may have some bearing. I guess we won't know a whole lot more until the 7-year-old comes out of an induced coma. There's also an angle if they were killing that family. Mr. al-Hilli's brother did work as a secretary for him in one of his companies, and he booted him out and replaced him with his wife, the deceased. So there may very well have been an angle where they both knew something, did something. Maybe he was selling something to somebody to make some money. Whether it be in the narcotics trafficking or in the intelligence game, and his services were no longer required. And that's why these guys went after both of them, killed husband and wife, with extreme prejudice. But it was back in 2003, at the start of the Iraq War, that he was put under extreme surveillance. His wife was a dentist. They met in Dubai. She had a Swedish passport. The grandmother had an Iraqi passport. But it was probably one of the most cruel and evil murders you could imagine, with probably international repercussions that are just beyond belief. Because basically we may be fighting this so-called world war right now. Another story that kind of comes along with it is, it came from Veterans Today, whether it's a legit piece. Gordon Duff put it out that the United States Navy is on alert for a false flag attack on one of their naval ships, compliments of Israel and Netanyahu's gang, that they're not going to fall sucker for it this time. That's very important. But at least see, if you're thinking, you can't be taken advantage of. Very, very important to be thinking all the time. Let's see here. And they had talk about Obama's kill list. I didn't have time to review that in much detail, but let's watch this part of it.
The discussion of a presidential kill list, despite its enormous constitutional ramifications, has gotten very little attention from the national media. The idea that the commander-in-chief, regardless of who it is, has a list of people, including American citizens, who can be killed without trial, isn't just a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. So I wanted to know. The so-called presidential kill list that's gotten a lot of attention, and this list of folks who have been targeted for assassination.
Right.
And on that list have been U.S. citizens who have not been afforded trial, including Anwar al-Awlaki. How do you, as president, or any president for that matter, regardless of party or person, utilize that power to assassinate even U.S. citizens?
Well, first of all, you're basing this on reports in the news that have never been confirmed by me, and I don't talk about our national security decisions in that way.
Well, what an answer. The president won't confirm that list, but he won't deny the list. Okay, but let's add another layer here, because that presidential kill list, it didn't just get out because of hard-nosed journalists breaking the story. It was leaked by the administration. In that two-shot, I nodded my head when the president said that he hadn't confirmed these reports, and that's true. So who has? Well, to the New York Times, William Daley, President Obama's chief of staff in 2011, talked openly about this kill list, saying the administration knew they couldn't simply just go on adding more names indefinitely. Dennis Blair, the director of national intelligence until he was fired in May of 2010, said the discussions inside the White House of long-term strategy against al-Qaeda were sidelined by intense focus on strikes of targets who were on that kill list. So on that first point, the president acted like this is something secretive that he's never commented on. But it is clear that members of his administration have no problem talking about the kill list to reporters. Maybe because those reporters have helped to frame the president as tough on terror. But there's more.
More broadly, though, our goal has been to focus on al-Qaeda, to focus narrowly on those who would pose an imminent threat to the United States of America. And that's why it's not just bin Laden, but a whole tier of al-Qaeda leadership has been taken off the field. And that's part of what has allowed us to now begin to transition out of Afghanistan, to begin to bring our troops home.
Again, what the president said here misses at least one important point. The president's war with al-Qaeda has gone far from the borders of Afghanistan to nations like Yemen. It was in Yemen where President Obama ordered the death of Anwar al-Awlaki, who, as I mentioned to the president, was a U.S. citizen and yet was never afforded trial. In fact, 2 lawyers simply decided that al-Awlaki could be killed. In addition to killing him, the president also ordered a drone strike that killed al-Awlaki's 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki. That 16-year-old, also a U.S. citizen, born in Denver, Colorado. So for the president to make the argument that killing those U.S. citizens without due process in Yemen means the end to the Afghanistan war is simply disingenuous. So what you need to know, the way the president played this issue with us is really quite telling. When questioned about the constitutionality of a president, any president, having the power to order the deaths of U.S. citizens, he claims that he's never said that he has a kill list and can't discuss it further. A constitutional lawyer turned president using a power that violates the most basic principle in the Bill of Rights, leaking his use of it when it's politically expedient, then claiming it can't be discussed when it's not. And that is reality check.
Very good. Something we all need from time to time, a good reality check. And part of the reality check I guess we have to go into is Moody's lowering the EU credit rating to AAA-. The big countries, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and the UK, have a negative outlook. Of course, they're the ones that have to pay the shot, so we're in a lot of trouble. Soros calls for Germany to lead or leave the euro. He says German-backed austerity measures should be abandoned, that they should accept higher inflation. He has also backed a new European fiscal authority financed by value-added tax receipts to oversee euro government finances. Germany should become a more benevolent leading country or exit the single currency. Either alternative would be better than to persist on the current course. Tomorrow, the 12th of September, the German Constitutional Court will decide whether it is constitutional for Germany to bail out these other countries. The ESM is an integral part of the European Central Bank's bond buying scheme, and they're creating unlimited amounts of money by getting into this thing about buying these decrepit bonds from Spain and Italy and eventually other parts of the euro. They may save the euro, but is also a step toward permanent division of Europe into debtors and creditors. Debtor countries will have to submit to supervision, the creditors will not. Prospects of prolonged depression and a two-tier Europe would eventually destroy the European Union. Bad idea from the start. Mr. Soros has advocated the creation of a European fiscal authority to make key economic decisions for everyone to establish a level playing field. Well, that's great. So that's called representation without any participation from you on picking who's representing you. And when they're controlling the purse strings about what and everything you get, that is total and abject dictatorship and slavery. Kind of hard to even imagine Germany leaving the European Union because ultimately it was Hitler's idea anyway, and even before him. But he says a German exit would be disruptive but manageable. Well, I doubt it. No matter what happens to it, it's going to be a catastrophe. OECD says the economies are getting worse. It's difficult to kickstart growth. If there was a button you could push, they'd do it, says David Cameron. Well, there is a button you can push. And it's not low interest rates. It's waiving taxes. The stranglehold on the workers. If we have our own money to earn and to spend, we can take this out. These bailouts they did for the elite rich banksters are the worst thing you could possibly do. The best thing you could possibly do is raise the interest rate for two reasons. One, it makes borrowing prohibitive. So you're not going to get into endless debts that you can't pay back and go down the drain. The low interest rate, close to zero, is life support. So a lot of people that have assets invested get nothing back. And because they get nothing back, they can't buy anything. So because they can't buy anything, they're just living on a starvation wage. They're walled out of the economy. And the economy can't grow and prosper. This is the stimulus from the very bottom, which is where you need it, the broad support base of we the people, the lender of last resort. The other big thing is, says the slump was down to global factors. The biggest global factors are the ones they brought in. Free trade and the loss of manufacturing jobs in all our countries because they walled everything out from us and sent it overseas somewhere else. So interest rates did go down for these countries, a couple of percentage points, and when you owe billions and billions and billions and billions, that means a lot, but it's a temporary fix. Some of the other repercussions are nasty. And this one here, the police are fighting with the police. The riot police had their building picketed by the regular police because they cut their wages and benefits. They ended up fighting in the street. This is something that you're going to see come over here too in time. And the guys talk about their brother policemen, brothers fighting brother. Yes, we're all brothers. It's something the police don't understand. We're brothers too. We're Homo sapiens, all of us. We're all citizens of this country. While you're protecting all the banksters, gangsters, and economic terrorists and hitmen, we're all going to face this Waterloo, where we have to fight for the last dime, the last slice of bread. They train us to that right from the earliest days in school. The earliest thing you did in school is to play musical chairs, where they keep taking something away from you, and there's always one person less to have a place to sit down, or one person less to have a pension, one person less to have a living wage. They get us trained for that. And then just because I always say it, and maybe no one believes me, but this is what the Greek police, Coast Guard, and fire departments have done. To have mock executions of their leaders in the town square. Because they're deadly serious about what comes. So when the economy totally and completely fractures and breaks, you know, losers like that are going to be hanging from the town square. And who's going to miss them? Not me. South Africans that were involved in this mining strike, they wanted to charge the other victims with murder because they forced the police to shoot them. That Orwellian logic fell by the wayside, and it didn't happen. The audit of the Federal Reserve found out that they gave out money to all the banksters and gangsters. What is it, $16 trillion between December 2007 and June 2010 without the advice or counsel of Congress, not that that matters, and just bailed out all these big banks. Who are the problem? The unfunded liabilities of the United States are bordering more towards 222 trillion. This Ponzi scheme will fall apart very, very quickly. And there isn't probably much anything can do because none of the people seem to understand anything about what's really going on. And it's just disgusting because we will pay a terrible, terrible price for all this. One of the other things, we're getting close to the end here, but you know, this is real life. These pictures were making the rounds of you know, babies starving in Yemen. The hunger, famine, involving tens of thousands of people. We did the Olympics, and it's like I said, this is, God says we're all sinners, this is where we sin. We have the means to feed, clothe, and take care of all these people. That is our role and mission as Christians, to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, tend to the sick. And we leave all these people to starve to death, and somehow we go around feeling we're good because Santa Claus comes on Christmas Day. And then the leaders that should be hung, this is Berlusconi's underground cave. They say it rivals something like a James Bond film. There's always been rumors to this, but a photographer, Antonello Saputo, was able to get pictures and post them online. So of course Mr. Berlusconi entertains other politicians at these things. All our world leaders go there. George Clooney's going to testify at his trial. Cristiano Ronaldo is supposed to. But Tony Blair and Vladimir Putin have been here, and you wonder what the hell they do there. We know Mr. Bunga Bunga Man screws every woman with 2 legs, so obviously that goes there. But one thing that really disturbs me is the fact that he had an artificial volcano set up on the grounds of this villa to entertain his guests at one of his parties. So you got to wonder, is he showing them how they're going to destabilize the world and blow it up while they screw all their whores in this underground tribute to Poseidon, a god of an undersea underworld. And these are the people that are in control of the planet Earth. Why? Because we let them. It's just absolutely despicable that the lowest common denominators in the human race run the planet. That's why we the people are so important. That's why shows like Conspiracy Cafe and other alternative media are important. We're the only people who are going to tell you a lot of these things. How many people are living under the shadow of Mount Fuji and don't have a clue what's going to happen to them because they're caught up in the pop culture machine that's going to eat them alive, like the planet killer. Every war we put off, every false flag we divert, every mind we liberate is another step that we will not have to live through this horrible destiny that they plot and conspire for us. The 12th may be a very big day where Europe comes apart quickly if Germany isn't going to bail out these countries and they start to unwind. I went into a local coin store last week just to look around, talk to a guy that I know. He wasn't there, but I could tell quickly by looking under the counter. The inventory was very, very low. They don't have much to sell. That's a good thing for the people who have bought. For the people who would need it tomorrow, that's a terrible thing because it isn't going to be there. They won't have lifeboats. Just like when the Titanic sank, you're going to go to the boat station and the davits are empty. The boat's gone. It pulled away. It's going to be like that for you unless you prepare. And if you dare to challenge the orthodoxy and think for yourself, you can change the whole world. Just get off that chair. Change the channel all the time to that channel. Change to Conspiracy Cafe. Change to me, your host, George Freund, because I'll be with you again next week to enlighten you. Hopefully there are no false flags, no thermonuclear events, and no economic catastrophes. But we are prepared. And compliments of that channel and our friends here, Aaron working so hard to produce this show, Randy doing so hard to keep this thing going on a shoestring. Get us another shoestring. Contribute with PayPal, send something here in the snail mail. Do whatever you can. The lives you save with it may be your own. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next week. Good night.
About the crime, no one looks behind the curtain, and no one questions why. The only time we got is right about now. I cross my heart, I take the vow, I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end.